From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One ball, corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, the transfer portal has talent sustainable for all. Can Mike Norvell, though, keep his fire and focus burning eternally? And a thought on expansion. Do we really want to see Miami left for dead as we head off to greener pastures? Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. 2475 Appalachia Parkway. CPTallybar.com, the website. Daily lunch specials Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. But on Tuesdays, all day, all night long, everybody. Taco Tuesday, hard, soft shell, beef or chicken tacos, $8.99 all day. I guess all you can eat tacos. Get after it, America. Get after it, Tallahassee. Enjoy it. Courtesy of our great friends over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. And then at 7 o'clock, Trivia Tuesday going down. Come in, enjoy those great food and drink specials while playing some trivia to win some cold, hard cash. Best trivia in town, some people say, Corey. Some people say.
Some people. I'm not going to disagree with it, no.
Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Won't you subscribe? I think we got a buck deal flying out there, Corey, ever since the latest coup from the On3 network pulling Steve Wiltfong away from one of the other competing networks. One of the best, if not maybe the best, some would say, some would argue. Recruiting guy out there. He's now part of the On3 network, so you're going to get all of his insight, all of his sourcing, all of his reporting when you join Warchant.com, because you get everything from Warchant.com and you get the power, the leverage of the entire On3 network. I think since he's part of the family now, Shannon Terry's just gone ahead and lost his mind and been like, all right, we're gonna get the Buck Club running again. So check it out. Go to warchant.com. It should be right there on the website. Neon green. You can't miss it. $1 American to join the family. Don't know if it's for a month or for a whole year again. Probably not a whole year. I should know this, but I just clicked on the link, Corey, and it just tells me to unlock the best and network access, but it doesn't tell me if it's
well, it's at least for today, right?
Is that right?
You know what I mean? So whoever's listening to this today, you got time. Today's the day. Don't wait.
Yes.
Don't wait till next week or next month or till August.
Yes.
Do it now. We know it. We know it's going today. The deal is through to at least today. So, take advantage.
All right. Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Shout out to our friends over at the Jeff Cameron Show. They are weekdays 1 through 3 o'clock, except for today when Headlines takes over. Irish O'Fell, Corey Clark, and Jeff Cameron. Tom and Jeff excited about the excitement that Mike Norvell's displayed at practice thus far, Corey, through these 2 weeks of practice. Question I want to kind of spin to you is, how sustainable is it? We see just how dogged he is in his pursuit of excellence, pushing these guys every single day. We have not seen any difference in the last, these 5 practices or whatever we've been out. We haven't seen any difference between the way he coached those guys and pushed them in 20 and 21 and 22 and 23. Just had a lot of better players, and things worked out a little bit better on the field. Do we look at Nick Saban? Do we think that, hey, if he did it, you should be able to do it? Is Kirby proof that it is sustainable? Because we saw it from Nick. We saw it from Jimbo. Jimbo clearly couldn't keep it going, so we're like, all right, Nick is just a mutant. But it seems like Kirby's got something cooking as well that might be long-lasting and sustainable. And he's pretty freaking intense, too. I mean, how much of this can Mike Norvell keep burning at this level of intensity for an extended period of time, do you think?
There's no way to really know until we see what happens. Like, I would have thought Jimbo had that competitive fire that the guys you mentioned have. And he didn't. I mean, clearly he didn't. Because if he had competitive fire, he would have made different staff changes. He would have made changes quicker. He would have understood, like, maybe I'm not the best OC in the country. I can go hire the best OC, but he was calling plays meant more to him than winning games, which is just, I would have never thought that. I would have thought he loved winning games. But anyway, so that's an aside. I think you don't know until you know, but I will say this. The first thing that came to mind when you brought that up, like the sustainability of it, like how do you keep that fire burning for that long? Is it impossible? No, because I remember there was a scene that I'll always remember. it was, I guess, it was Phil Kofer's freshman year. I'm going to guess that's 2014, 15. Jahlil Okafor was the best player at Duke. I do remember that. Anyway, I'm watching. Duke is playing at Florida State. Florida State is not all that good that year. They're like a mediocre NIT-ish team. Duke, of course, is Duke. And I remember in out-of-bounds play, this is a game in February or January. Duke's number 5 in the country. The ball, one of the Duke players that makes a really good defensive play slaps the ball out on a Florida State player out of bounds, so it's Duke ball. And Krzyzewski gives this like Tiger Woods fist pump, like a double fist pump, like yes, and screams really loud, like yes, and gets all fired up about a game that's in the Tucker Center in January of like 2015. After my man has already won like 4 national titles and has been coaching for 40 years at Duke, or whatever that would have been at that time, 35 years at Duke. Like, it didn't burn out with him. Some guys are, the point being, some guys are, the great ones are just wired that way. They're just wired to always be competitive. And when they lose an ounce of it or something changes, they decide they don't want to do it anymore. I'm not saying Norvell is Mike Krzyzewski, obviously, but that's a huge standard. But he might have it. Through 4 years or 4.5 years, whatever we are now, he certainly looks like that's just who he is as a person. Some people are just wired to be ultra competitive and ultra urgent all the time. But, again, we don't know. But there are examples where people are like that.
The continuity, we've been hearing about that in this preseason, Corey. I mean, surely that helps maybe maintain some of that intensity because you can trust the guys around you. I don't think he's going to have this huge core of guys continually coming back year after year. Nick had Kirby for a long while, and then after that he lost kind of like his right-hand man. How much of his energy do you think is the luxury kind of manifesting itself or personifying because he has all these guys around him that he can trust and knows that they're executing and coaching their guys up to his standard?
I don't know. I think he's just wired the way he's wired. Like at Memphis, wasn't he losing 2 or 3 assistants every year? Or more than that? Like, yeah. He lost his special teams guys, lost his DC. Like, he was always losing guys. I don't think that changed the essence of who he is. He's just always going to be that guy. Which is, look, you do worry about, like, how is that sustainable? How do you keep that fire burning? When you've had success, number one, and also when you're making $10.5 million and you get older. Like, can you keep that going? But, right now he's at the perfect age. What is he, 41? He's a young whippersnapper. He can maintain this, you would think, for a while. I don't know if it has anything to do with the coaching, the coaches around him. I think there's some comfort that comes with that. But I think even if it was a whole new staff, he would be who he is. I just think who he is that guy, and who he is. We should try to let people understand. I know we've explained it before, but it's nonstop at practice, and it's nonstop. He doesn't seem like a guy, Aslan, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like when he'll see a player in the hallway and he'll be like, "Hey, Destin, nice to see you," really loudly.
Really loudly. Yeah,
and they'll be like, "Hey, coach." But I don't think he's a guy that like just BS's with you. Like I'm sure they have meetings. He's like, how's your grades? How's your family? How's your girlfriend and all that? But he's not a guy that jokes around a lot. That's his version of joking around. Is, "Hey, nice to see you. Hey, coach, nice to see you." Yeah. But everything else, to me, seems like it's strictly business. Not a lot of jokey, not a lot of laughs. It's strictly business. It's strictly just full steam ahead on everything.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult balance to achieve. And when you hear guys like Jarian Jones talk about like him being a father figure to him, and then we see him kind of in some of those lighthearted moments ribbing the guys or being loud and boisterous around there. But then we see him at practice.
But I don't think he ribs them. Ribs them to me implies like, what nice catch. When they drop something. He's never like that guy. Or like, "Oh, good hands. Nice hands there, Johnny." That to me is ribbing. He'll do the whole, hey, Johnny, nice to see you, really loudly, but I don't think he ever kind of sides up to him like, Keon, you got to make, you can't make that catch. Like, he just doesn't seem to have.
He did that to Johnny once, like when they did a field goal block unit. Like, Johnny barely jumped a foot, and they were looking down that replay board at practice, and he looked at Johnny, he's like, that's all you got for me? But then, like,
all right,
2 seconds later, it's back to, it's incredible to see him kind of juggling all these different facets of a personality. I know, Nick would cut loose. We'd see him dancing in someone's, do like the Cupid shuffle in someone's living room when he's on a recruiting visit. And like, I get that. That's a recruiting visit. You're not in practice. You don't have to be on. You're in a suit and tie. You're not in your warm-ups. But like the fact that he's able to kind of navigate and do all that, I guess maybe that gives you a little bit more hope that it's obviously sincere, but it probably is sustainable because he does all these different sides to him. He's not just this one gear consistently, and he's solely focused on winning, but he's got different ways of motivating guys and putting his arm around them and mixing in all the sort of stuff that I guess Bobby Bowden did to a certain degree.
Yeah, he's got that. But yeah, I mean, to the point that I guess Jeff and Tom were talking about, nothing has changed. No. He looks, after a 13-0 season, an unconquered season as we like to call it, nothing at all has changed. He is the same exact guy. He is the same exact guy he was during those practices after the Jacksonville State game. It hasn't changed. It's sustainability. That consistency is really important to me, to be that consistent guy over and over again. And he just seems like he's that guy. So again, the more you think about it, we'll see. His story is not completely written. It's not even close to being written. We don't even know how close it is to being over. But, man, it seems like just a perfect fit at the perfect time for Florida State because the guy doesn't stop. I do think he's just wired differently. He's just one of those guys that gets 5 hours of sleep a night. He's always up, always upbeat, always trying to encourage his guys, and he's loud. He runs that practice, but not in a Jimbo way. And, again, I'm not here diminishing what Jimbo did. He was a great coach and brought this school a national championship. I'm not diminishing that. But Jimbo was never, ever, the practices we saw, hey, great job. That's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. It was always, he was loud in the negative or he wasn't anything. Norvell's loud about everything. Great catch, Destin. That's what I'm talking about. There you go, Jeremiah. Come on, finish when somebody drops the ball. Like it's nonstop, always looking ahead, always trying to teach. But he'll call you out on when you do something wrong, but he'll also praise you when you do something correct. So it is loud. It is his practice. There's no mistake who is in charge. He is almost stalking it sometimes like a predator. Like from drill to drill and position group to position group, he's stalking and watching and always talking, always loud.
Yeah, I just wonder how you generate the confidence to be that guy, because I don't think he learned that by watching Todd Graham.
No,
it's an interesting thing that maybe someday we'll get him on the show just one-on-one. Maybe at our final ACC media day, we can really try to get into his head and figure out how it's wired and how it ticks. Last aspect of that, I think if they won a national title, this would be a much more interesting conversation, right? Because he would have had the ring, he'd have the money, he'd have everything, right? He'd have everything. For some reason, he's still not. I still don't think he's fully really embraced by the national media in terms of who he is and what he has done. It's crazy to see all this stuff about these, whatever she wants to call them, hit jobs on Kim Mulkey. It's like some guy, from the LA Times was trying to make it into they're the bad guys and UCLA's the good folks. And it's like, you don't have to generate this fake narrative. Like if you want a new age coach who kind of embodies a youthful exuberance and is doing things in a different way, using a transfer portal, but getting everybody on the same page. Hey man, there's a guy who's coaching at one of the biggest programs in the country, in the biggest sport in collegiate athletics. You can come do a story on this guy. But for whatever reason, hasn't really been able to get that momentum, and hopefully with a national title or at least a playoff appearance, they'll get it. So if they won it, we really have a kind of deep discussion probably on this, but this doesn't feel like the snub has added any more fuel, because I think even if they would have made the playoff and not won the national title, I can say fairly certainly I think we would still see the same guy that we see right now. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think he changes. I just think this is who he is. If they go undefeated this year and win a national championship, he'll be the same dude at tour of duty in January, and he'll be the same dude the first day of practice in March.
I hope, Corey. I mean, think about that. Go undefeated, national title. Like, I know we're trying to say he's immutable to all the forces of nature around him. I'm not saying that. I think you kind of are, but
well, I think when you think about, I mean, just think about his tenure here, man. Like, he had the worst season that we've seen at Florida State. Again,
literally.
3-6, should have been 3-9. That was an awful football team. And he started his career 3-10 with a loss at home on a last play Hail Mary to a 1AA team, an FCS team. Sorry, I'm old. And so we've seen that. And then we saw those practices after Jacksonville State and after getting blown out by Wake and after losing to wherever the Louisville loss. We've seen that, and then we've seen what's happened since. We saw all of last year. To me, anyway, and again, I wasn't at all the practices in 2021. I kind of cashed out there after the Jacksonville State game. Like, wow, what am I getting up for? Or you got to bring me back. But I didn't see. Did you see a difference? You go to more practices than I do, especially in 21. To me, it looks like the same exact guy.
No, for real. No, it absolutely is.
Think about, there aren't many coaches that have been on that end of the spectrum. Like, literally, maybe arguably the worst loss in Florida State history, the rock bottom moment in the history of the program. And then 2 years later, he's got an undefeated team that wins the ACC. Like, he's done that in such a short span that you've seen him at both ends of the spectrum. We never saw Jimbo at the bottom until it was the bottom and he bolted.
Yeah.
But we've seen this guy. He started at the bottom. Now he's here. That could be lyrics to a song. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I trust that he would be the same even if they reach newer heights, because he was the same when they were in the dumps, and he was the same last year when they were going 13-0 and beating Florida and Louisville with backup quarterbacks.
I will say I don't think he's anywhere near close to being on tilt. I do think there's a little extra edge to him because there's so much teaching going on. There is so much instruction going on. There is a new quarterback. There are, new receivers. Obviously, last spring it was, Johnny had been in the program for a little bit. Obviously, you had Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili. I feel like he senses there is an opportunity for this thing if he's not on his game, if he doesn't maintain his level of focus and the level of accountability that the guys that left this program, the 12 dudes that went to Indianapolis that are extremely valuable, maybe even priceless into the success that Florida State had last year, that if he doesn't maintain something or maintain that edge, it could backslide on him. So I do sense almost there's moments in practice where you see him a little bit more, I don't want to say ornery, but there's a little bit more fire there. But it's not like I'm losing control. This thing is I have to be something that I'm not. It's maybe turning up a little bit of who he is. I would have loved to see what Jimbo looked like after the USF game in 2016. I would have loved to see the way he was coaching after that, or like after the North Carolina game, because I bet something did change. Because I'm sure he did feel things slipping away because he had let it get to a bad point. And it's not at a bad point at all at Florida State. And it's a credit to, I guess, him identifying these players, bringing them in, and then Josh Storm's programming these guys the right way when they do get here in off-season workouts, that they're all ready to go once they hit the practice field. So it's pretty remarkable to see. And we'll get to see more later today, right? We're back at practice today, finally?
We'll get to see practice again, buddy. We'll actually have football to actually talk about. By the way, do you think there's a chance we could do the show tomorrow from the baseball game? Can we do that? Do we have the technology?
I mean, yeah, we can. A little recorder box. Remember, we used to actually hang out together at my house and record shows. Remember those times?
Weren't those the days? Yeah.
So,
and then COVID happened, and then I haven't seen you since.
And you're like, I'm going to drive 20 minutes to this kid's house.
No chance. But like, we could be on those back in the white stools, right?
Yeah,
outside, a little ambiance, but we're in the headsets talking.
All right, I'm down for that. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that's something to do. We can knock it out.
I'll charge the battery pack. I won't have to charge my soul, my drive. I'm not wired like Mike Norvell, but I got Vitamin Energy to help me out. You folks can do the same thing. Go to vitaminenergy.com. Use the promo code WarChampBOGO, WarChamp BOGO. Buy one, get one free. Shout out to NoldDad84 on the Twitter machine. I think the 84 means he's probably 2 years younger than I am, and his bio says Dad, Husband, Nole. So he's
Okay.
got me beat on the dad part and the husband part. What a show off in his bio. But he tweets at us, "Hey guys, I just ordered me some vitamin energy for next week. Let's go." Like 7 O's, 4 exclamation marks. And our friends over at Vitamin Energy replied to it and said, "Let's go," with 3 fire emojis. So if you want to get some engagement on the Twitter machine, everybody, just tweet at Vitamin Energy. Tell them that you're ordering some of their product. Stuff's great, clinically proven. Got me through my workout yesterday, Corey. I'm on the week in my preparation for my sailing trip in May, where I've gone from 10 minutes of cardio to 12 to 15. Now I'm on 18 minutes.
Nice.
After a really arduous day, sweating my rear end off, but I took the Vitamin Energy Burner Plus, made it through, and the work works, right? Is that the line that the guys were talking about? And I've kind of got motivated by you talking about going to Orange Theory, because I know y'all don't mess around at Orange Theory.
No.
I've been working out for years, but I don't really push myself. I'm like, I don't want to go. I'll max out here and there. I'll get 2 reps, and maybe I'll push 1 extra rep out in one exercise. But everything else, I'm like, I'm gonna just kind of hang around 3 sets, 12 reps, and move along. But I'm really pushing myself with this new workout. Vitamin Energy's helping out. I can't wait to see what I look like, because I can look at you every day and see what your work works like. So that's what I'm doing. You folks go to vitaminenergy.com. Use that promo code WarChampBoga. Looking over on the message boards, Corey Clark, which is one of the good perks of being a member of WarChant.com. You can get on the premium sites, the premium forums, recruiting, tribal council, and such. I thought this was actually authored by that one guy who's really neck deep in this Big Ten pursuit of Florida State, but it's someone else. I don't know why. Maybe they changed his name at the last second here. But apparently this guy said they had lunch with a Big Ten Board of Trustee member who's on their athletic board of their university that's in the Big Ten. And he says that the Big Ten's prioritizing certain things, like 6 different characteristics, and factoring in those characteristics, those traits that they want of the school. He thinks there's a clear-cut 1-2 that the Big Ten would want to bring in. And it's Florida State and Miami, according to this poster, according to his friend who's a Big Ten Board of Trustees member at a university in the Big Ten. Not like the Big Ten. Big Ten doesn't have a Board of Trustees. He's on the Board of Trustees at a Big Ten institution.
Right.
He's got some other schools in this list, a duo, if you will, because they're obviously going to bring in 2 if they're going to bring in other schools. Clemson, Georgia Tech is 4th in this list of schools. There's Florida State, Miami's the ideal pairing. Then there's another 2 schools, and then another 2 schools, and then Clemson and Georgia Tech. I kind of like that. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to save Miami. I don't want to see Miami thrive, but I don't want to see Miami die. And I know that might be problematic for a guy hosting a podcast that talks about Florida State. Would kind of like to still play them and see them be mildly competitive, but not as good as us, obviously. Thoughts on that, Corey? How surprised would you be if you discovered that legitimately in Big Ten circles they're looking at 2 schools and they think Florida State Miami is the best pair to pull out of the ACC?
I mean, I would be a little bit. I just, Jeff and Ira and I talked about that they don't think Clemson would be attached at the hip with Florida State. I think they would be and should be.
Why do they think they're not?
Just because it doesn't – basically, like it – yes, they might be, but they don't think it's an absolute that it's Florida State and Clemson together, like a twin package. They think Florida State is its own entity, Clemson is its own entity, and they're going to be looking out for each other, like for themselves, and they're not a package deal. I think they would be because of the recent football success. But, I mean, Miami, if Miami could ever be good again, they are a huge ratings monster if they're good. They just haven't been good in so long. Like, literally, they haven't mattered in 21 years. And the argument you can make that Miami doesn't, like, what bothers me about the whole thing, though, is let's just pretend this Board of Trustees member is from Purdue.
Shout out.
I'm going to say it. Like, who are you to determine the fate of the University of Miami football and make any sort of comment about their viability in a conference like the Big Ten? Like, Miami is one of the reasons college football is college football. I can't stress that enough. You think about what college football was. I'm old enough to slightly remember it. There were 2 games on a weekend. It was always like Ohio State versus Indiana. And one Ohio State running back would run 41 times for 133 yards, and the final score would be 17-7. And then you'd see Notre Dame play someone, or USC play UCLA occasionally. But that was it, man. Throughout I'm talking about early 80s. And then Miami comes along. Somehow miracles a championship in 1983, and legitimately that flips the sport. That was 40 years ago. I get it. But that flips the sport where all of a sudden the schools in Florida matter. The population boom in Florida mattered. Florida State becomes a dynasty. Florida State and Miami become the biggest rivalry in the sport. They become a ratings juggernaut. And these executives and these conferences start realizing, oh, man, college football can be a huge moneymaker. Look at these numbers. Look at all these players. This is great for the sport. Miami was at the heart of that, man. Those Miami-Notre Dame games were really memorable. And now here we are 30 years later, and like they don't have a seat at the table. Man, but right now Florida State doesn't have a seat at the table, but Northwestern and Indiana do. It's preposterous. So I am with you. As much as I know a lot of people listening to this would rather Miami just quit football altogether. And I get their fan base is obnoxious, the ones you've actually met in person. Actually, no, that's not true. The ones you meet in person probably are nice enough people. It's the ones you see on the internet that don't go to games, don't care to go to games. I get it. That's an obnoxious fan base on social media. But, man, Miami's meant a lot to this sport. And it's like, yeah, they should be where whatever this ends up being in 5 to 10 or 15 years, whatever this sport ends up being, 2 major main conferences, Miami should be a part of it, right? They were too important. I don't have any, like if Louisville doesn't make it, if NC State doesn't make it, if North Carolina doesn't make it, or Georgia Tech even, for that matter. It's like, well, man, y'all had y'all's chance to do anything in this sport. Well, Georgia Tech did win a title 33 years ago, but anything in this sport y'all could have done. Y'all didn't do it. Miami's done it. Miami's got 5 national championships since 1983. And I know they haven't done anything in 20 years, but they were a huge part of the boom of college football. And now they don't get to take part anymore because of Greg Sankey doesn't deem them worthy of it. That's what there's no I don't know, man. It's like there's no appreciation for the teams that mattered that built this sport. Miami and Florida State were enormous in the building of this sport. And you know, now we're talking about, will Miami be left out? Will they have to go to the Big 12? Like, I mean, I guess, again, I get it. A lot of you guys don't care. I just think it sucks. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it, but it will bother me that, you know, this was a program that was the best program in the country for a while there and created a great rivalry with Florida State, an unbelievable rivalry. You know, now they're just sent out to pasture. They don't matter. Like, I feel bad for all those Pac-12 schools that just lost their conference, but none of them did anything ever. Arizona, Arizona State, Stanford, Cal never mattered in college football, ever. You know, Stanford had John Elway in that kick return against Cal, or the other way around. Was it Cal? Yeah, it was Cal that won that game on the kick return. Yeah. That's it. That's what and McCaffrey. That's what they're known for.
Andrew Luck, come on, respect.
Yeah, right. But even those teams, like, they just didn't do anything. They've never done anything. They've never mattered. Miami mattered. Miami was the program. Miami was the program when College Game Day started. It was Miami and Florida State that built that. And then, you know, here we are where Miami, again, they haven't helped themselves because they haven't been any good in 20 years. I understand that. But I just feel like they, you know, they deserve a chance to play in the conference that matters. And it would be interesting to see what they would look like with real money, with Big Ten money. Like maybe that's all it would take to get them back to where they were. Because when they're good, I know people hate to hear this. They don't want me to say it. I don't even like saying it. I'm starting to vomit a little bit as I say it.
There's a lot of people that might have tuned us out, Corey. That was very pro-Miami. That was very
But when they're good, it's better for – I like it. It's better for college football.
They're a worthy villain. Like, it's good to have a villain that's
exactly
right. up to the battle, up to the challenge. Man.
It's like when the Yankees aren't any good, it's like, well, this kind of sucks. Yeah. You beat the Yankees and you don't even care. Yeah. Like Florida State beats Miami, and it's like, yeah, but it's Miami. But it used to matter. And it could matter again if they go to the Big Ten. I mean, I could see it though. Them as a package deal with Miami, maybe you sell that to the Big Ten better because you're getting everybody in the state of Florida. You're not just getting somebody to compete with the SEC's Florida team. You're getting Florida, Florida State cancel each other out. Well, now you've got Miami, and you've got that enormous population base in all those TV sets. Well, now your Florida State and Miami trump Florida. The package deal of Florida State and Miami in that conference trumps what the SEC has in Florida. So instead of just being equal. So I guess I could see that. I'd still, if I'm the Big Ten, I'd be like, no, we're taking Clemson. But I don't make the decisions clearly.
Like, I'm good for a once every 5-6 years, like the 2013 edition of the Gators. Like, I'll take great joy in that. That's really cool. But when they think they have a chance, and you are a little bit nervous as a fan about playing them, like 2003 might be like a really good example. I know there wasn't a lot on the line in that game, although I think if Florida State, by winning that helped them, I think, maybe get to the Orange Bowl against Miami that season, possibly. I don't know how it all worked out. But Florida really thought they were going to win that game. And you as a Florida State fan walked in that game a little bit nervous. Like, all right, like we don't have this for sure. And there was moments in the 2013 game 10 years later where it didn't start off great, like in the first quarter and a half. And you're like, uh-oh, like are these bums really going to ruin this magical season? It's kind of cool when they're a little bit, when they can hang in the pocket with you. But then you want to obviously be able to, smash them over the head and win. So if, mix in like one every 4 or 5 years being terrible so we can enjoy it.
Right.
And then I want them to be on our level. And then I want to rip it from them. I want to take away their hope, their optimism, their season, their goals that are on the line. Like, I want that last game in November to mean something. The first game in November, whatever they've made the Miami-Florida State game become, like, I want that to have some juice. And like the 2014 game had some juice because Miami thought like they were actually back, kind of. They weren't.
They were not. And the 13 game had a little bit because at the time I think Miami was 7th in the country. Now they did it with smoke and mirrors or whatever, and they weren't. They were competitive for a half, but it was clear who the much better team was on that field that night in 2013. But I like it. I like top 10 matchups, man. And here's the stat for you. This goes back to Florida, and I've said this before. Florida State and Florida played, weirdly, they played 12 games in the 90s because they had 2 rematches in the Sugar Bowl. Each time, both teams were ranked in the top 10. I think
Meanwhile, the Iron Bowl had...
It was the Iron Bowl, and I think Ohio State, Michigan, too, but definitely the Iron Bowl. Yeah. Alabama and Auburn have met as top 10 teams like 5 times in their history. 6 times in their history, something like that. Florida and Florida State met 12 times in the 90s as top 10 teams. Florida State and Miami, it was like 6 times. You know what I'm saying? Like the 90s was when college football really took off. And at the heart of that rocket ship was Florida State, Florida, and Miami. The Alabama did they had, I shouldn't say jack squat. They did win a national title memorably over Miami, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. Because Miami was the villain. And Lamar Thomas getting run down from behind by George Teague and fumbling on what should have been a 90-yard touchdown. That was a lot of fun.
Not fun. That was stripped.
Yeah, he was just, give me that.
Yeah.
Give me that. Yeah, he was. That was fun to see because Miami was the villain. Miami is awesome at being the villain. It would be cool if they were, if they ever got remotely close to that. Again, we don't want to, I'm not sitting here saying let's get Miami to win 5 more titles. I don't ever want them to get another trophy. But I want them to be good enough that it hurts when they lose. How about that, Aslan? Is that Florida State-centric enough?
Yeah.
That I can say I want Miami to be good enough that when they lose to Florida State, it stings.
Even
it's
more.
A big win for Florida State.
Yeah. It always hurts. I mean, we humiliated them 2 years ago. That hurt, even though they were a lousy team.
Was that 45 to – what was that score? 45 to 3?
Was it? Yeah.
Good night.
Just to protect us or protect you, can you give us a tale of you and John Clark leaving Miami and Little Havana in 1992?
Have I not told this? I've told this.
You have.
I told it.
We got a new audience maybe.
Oh,
sometime.
Yeah. And also, folks, I hope you understand. I cannot like Miami and still appreciate what they did and feel bad for a program that mattered a lot when college football was starting to take off. That's all. That's all I'm saying. It's like, again, I would never want the Yankees to win another World Series, but I can appreciate what they've done for the sport. So anyway, so 1992, Florida State loses on the second wide right. where and walking out of that stadium, I can promise you this: I was not a fan of the Miami program or Miami fans. That's back then when they showed up. It was loud. It was the Orange Bowl. They were as obnoxious as you can possibly imagine a fan base being after a second straight wide right to lose a game.
Could you imagine if 32-year-older Corey Clark showed up in a phone booth time machine and went to that younger version of Corey Clark and was like, listen, in like 30 years, you're going to feel bad for these guys.
Yeah.
As they yelled and then hurled epithets at you and your father.
So anyway, they yelled a bunch of crazy stuff at us, as you would. I remember one guy being like, Florida State fan, walking down the ramp, Florida State fans, please move to the right. Please move to, like, at the top of his lungs, and it's great to be a Miami Hurricane or whatever nonsense they chant. I think that's a Gator. I can't remember what they do.
Yeah, no, they both do. Yeah, a bunch of teams do it. There's no originality. Originality.
So anyway, we're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic on one of those major highways. My dad is he's very upset. Another horrible, tough loss to Miami 2 years in a row.
Did you drive down in one day, or did you guys stop?
No, I think we flew down. We were just driving back to the hotel.
Nice.
So it's bumper-to-bumper traffic leaving, and then from the middle lane, he starts to get ready. The right lane, he starts to get over, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's almost stopping traffic to move over to get from the right lane to the middle lane, and then finally to the left lane. Like he's dodging almost in and out of cars, like really aggressively. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? And I was 17, and I was just angry at the world. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Can we just drive? And then he gets into the left lane, and I see up ahead there's a car that's pulled over with, like, the hood up and smoke coming out of the car. And we're in the left lane, and we slow down right next to the car, and there's two Miami fans. He rolls down the window, just does the chop, and keeps driving. So that's how I was raised, folks. That's how I was raised. I'm like, man, we're going to have to get out. We don't know anything about cars. Why are we getting over here to help these two people? And we didn't get out. We slowed down, rolled down the window. He did the chop and then kept driving. So, that's my dad's thoughts on Miami. And I'm with him. I could just, in my old age, appreciate. It's crazy, too, man. Like, he was 50. Like, we're almost about the same age. I'm a little bit younger than he was when that happened. Yeah. It's just nuts where the time goes. That I'm basically the age he was when he did that. But anyway, so I get it. Like, I don't like Miami. I laugh at their misery, but I appreciate what they did for the sport.
As we head to practice later today here, Corey, is it time to start seeing some distance maybe between Brock and DJ or DJ and Brock? Can something be achieved here in these last 10 practices, 9 practices left, you think? Or will this still be one of those things where they're fairly close? We just assume naturally that at some point the guy that's played more football, that's going to assert itself in the summer, and then that's that.
No, it's funny you say that. I like the way it is. I like that there's a little bit of competition. I like that Brock Glenn is holding his own with him. I also know that DJ will be starting in Ireland unless he's hurt. There's no doubt in my mind. He did not come over here to not play. It is like Brock Glenn would have to be incredible over these last 10 practices, the spring game, and then the first 3 weeks of fall camp to have any shot. I just think no matter what, Norvell is going to be very, very he's going to want to go with the guy that's more experienced. So Brock Glenn would have to look like the best quarterback in the country to win this job. But more than anything, it's good for Florida State in the long term. It's good for Florida State in the short term that Brock Glenn is going toe-to-toe with DJ right now. Don't you think? Like, I don't think it means that the starting quarterback job is up for debate, but I do like that you have a competent backup that looks pretty darn good. And if DJ does struggle or if DJ does get hurt, Brock Glenn won't go in there and look like the guy that played against Louisville and Georgia. He'll look like a legitimate quarterback, a legitimately good Division I quarterback, and which is what he's looked like. I don't know what he did in the scrimmage, but that's what he looked like through the first 4 practices.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. There's nothing. It's only an upshot if these guys are competing against each other. I mean, there might be that part of the fan base that wants to hear that DJ looks like Jordan Travis reincarnated and everything's going to be great, but we live in real times, in a real world at times here, so That's very unlikely at this point of his career at Florida State because Jordan had been here for so long. I just wonder, how do you – and I totally agree with you. Like, Brock has to go whatever, like a standard deviation and +1 above what DJ is doing to win this job. But how will he process that, though, if he doesn't win the job and he feels like he was maybe just as every bit of good as DJ was, but not better enough? Because Luke Kromenhoek is here and he's not going anywhere. And I know DJ's only here for 1 year. So do we think in this day and age that a kid like Brock Glenn could be realistically thought to have patience and be okay with losing the job if it's a draw, and then 2025, it's your time to shine? I
mean, if not, then you're not losing anything if he leaves. Like, what world are we living in where a kid that's a redshirt freshman going up against a fifth-year senior that's played in 50 games is going to get so upset that if he doesn't win the job, he transfers, when next year he's in line to be the starter at Florida State University? Like, if you can't show just a little bit of patience and understand the natural timeline and natural order of things, then what would you, and I don't think he's
this is an exercise
it's an exercise. It's not like something we think of Brock Glenn. I think, but no, I would be stunned if he got upset because he thought he outplayed or played even with DJ and didn't get the job. I mean, you've got to know the deal. You've got to know what's going on. You've got one of the most experienced, maybe the most experienced quarterback in the United States on your side. You've played in 2 college football games in your life. You didn't score a touchdown in either one of them. The last college football game you played, and again, nobody's judging Brock Glenn, you lost by 60 points. So, nobody's blaming Brock Glenn for that. Nobody to throw to. But you know what I'm saying? Like, he hasn't earned the right to be upset if he loses the job. Tate Rodemaker, if he was still here, would have. But Brock Glenn's a redshirt freshman. That his whole goal, he has to know. His parents have to know. Norvell knows. His teammates know. His whole goal is this time next year, he wants it to be his job. And to do that, he has to put in the work that he's putting in right now. But, yeah, I think he seems like a pretty bright kid, and he has to know that he's trying to be the Florida State starting quarterback in 2025. If it comes earlier because he just outplays DJ, great. If it comes because of an injury, go do what you got to do. Man the ship, do well. But he knows redshirt sophomore year is when he's supposed to be the quarterback.
I was going to say we can ask Alex Atkins this question after practice, but we get Adam Fuller and Coach Norvell.
You can still ask Adam Fuller that.
I was going to ask how he thinks that kid looks. Yeah, how's he spinning it, Adam?
How is he spinning it? How's his timing and his computer, his processing unit? Yeah. How's he processing things?
Yeah, there we go. How are you folks processing the lines for the Final Four this weekend? MyBookie.ag's got you covered when you sign up, and you're a first-time customer. You'll get an instant cash deposit bonus when you use the promo code WARCHANT. Purdue, North Carolina State, now 9.5 for the Boilermakers, Corey. Point total 146. Sightline's always tough in those huge football stadiums. Zach Edey, DJ Burns, big dudes, banging down low. Maybe it's a low-scoring effort. UConn favored by 12 against Alabama. 161.5, the point total on that. Mix them up, parlay them perhaps. Go for the point total, go for the spread. Maybe do the money line if you want to be a little bit safer. Just bet responsibly, everybody. Don't chase anything. There's only 2 games, too, so there's not a lot to chase. But go to MyBookie.ag. There's a sportsbook, obviously, live betting, live casino as well. Futures, college football odds out there as well. Take advantage. Promo code requires $50 minimum deposit and rollover requirement of one-time deposit total, including bonus for withdrawal. For full terms and conditions, visit mybookie.ag/about-us. On the way out, Corey, polls, baseball polls.
All right. Oh yeah, I didn't even look. Where are the Noles?
8th in Baseball America, 11th. Okay. Perfect game. I didn't even like to do one. Coach has got us 12th. Writers got us 12th. D1 Baseball 14th.
And the Florida, Gators are number 1.
6th into D1 Baseball. 6th at 16 and 11. 6th. Mm-hmm. Florida State 14th in that poll. The coaches
What's crazy about the Florida win is, again, there's talent, and they keep winning these series. 2 out of 3 against SEC teams, not bad teams. But I think they're 16-11, and I think they've had 3 come from behind, maybe 4 come from behind wins in the 9th inning, including 2 this weekend, where they came. I think in the first game they won against Mississippi State, I think they were down like 8-2, and came back and won. I mean, those wins count, but again, they're really close to being like 14-15. And they're 16-11. At some point, the losses will matter. But hey, it helps. I assume it helps Florida State's RPI.
Second in RPI right now, Florida State.
Are they really?
Yep.
Who's won?
I think the Gators.
Of course. Well, there you go. I mean, they have gamed the system. Good for them.
No, Clemson is. I'm sorry. The Gators are not. Clemson is number 1 in RPI. Florida State is 2. Florida is 18th.
So if Florida State, would have held on to a couple of those leads up in Clemson, they'd be number 1 in RPI and legitimately, I think, number 1 in the country. Honestly. I think if they had won 2 out of 3 at Clemson, especially, being up 8-1 in the 9th and 11-2 the next day, if they'd have taken care of business and cruised to wins, easy wins at Clemson. Now, again, they didn't. Clemson came back. They can hit. Florida State would be 24-2, and I think absolutely ranked number 1 in the country in every poll.
Florida was up 6-2 in Game 1 against the Mississippi State. Mississippi State was up 6-2 on Florida in the first game of that series going into the 8th inning. Gators put up 2 in the 8th, 3 in the 9th to win 7-6.
There you go. And then I think they hit a walk-off on Sunday.
They won that 4-3, and Caglione, 2-run homer in the 9th inning.
I'm saying.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, Mississippi State hasn't done all that great since they won that national title.
They still got the national title, though.
They do. Ole Miss, same thing. I don't think LSU might be in a bit of a malaise. They lost to the Gators. I don't know how they did last weekend, though, but the week before.
They did lose like the top 2 picks in the draft off last year's team. So you figured they'd take a bit of a step back.
Yeah.
By the way, I was talking about that with Brady. We went and watched a little bit of the practice on Monday.
Oh, sweet.
Didn't get to see BP, but we did get to see Link run infield practice for about 35 minutes. And again,
some cool drills you'll be able to take home?
Yep. Well, I don't know about that, but there are – you can see like why they spend a lot of time on it. They do a lot of different things. It's really impressive to watch because it's just nonstop and it's quick, and he's always talking. But I was telling Brady, like, this day and age, I think high-level college baseball is probably the equivalent of AA baseball in the minor leagues. Like, I legitimately do. Like, you see nothing but, especially on the weekend, you're seeing nothing but like 93 to 95. You've got guys that can hit. You've got dudes that have power all over the country. And you see the kid that was the best player for Florida last year, Langford.
Yeah,
he's already in the major leagues.
Yep.
Skeens will be in the major leagues whenever they want him to be. Same with Dylan Cruz, probably. Like, these guys are more ready-made to get to the major leagues quicker. So don't be surprised if, like, Cameron Smith and like Tibbs, probably not next year, but maybe they're in the major leagues. Certainly somebody, a couple guys, the Caglione guy, he could be in the major leagues, by the year he's like 2 months after he's drafted. Like, I do think college baseball probably, and the draft plays this out. I think college baseball is more talented than it's ever been. I think NIL helps, that you can get some of these guys that, like, usually, I mean, it's easy for us to tell a 4th-round pick, hey, man, don't take that $200,000 bonus. Come to Florida State, come to Florida, come to wherever, and you can make a certain amount of money, but you also get to be ready. You get to play college baseball, and you get to be drafted again, and maybe in 3 years you'll be a number 1 pick. And so I do think NIL helps, but just look around the country, man. There are great players, and I think the only mock draft I looked at, like 24 of the 30 players drafted were college players. It used to be the exact opposite when I was growing up. It was always high school players. And now they flipped it where it's almost always college players getting drafted in the first round. So I just think that's interesting. And Florida State has a baseball game tonight, so come out and support them.
Yeah. Was listening to the Rosillo podcast. Yeah, had Jeff Passan on. High praise for the Bravos, man. Passan's got them making it to the World Series. How are things in the A?
Well, 3-1 so far. One on Monday, 9-0 against the White Sox. So yeah, they're going to be good, man. Their offense could really hit. But what does it matter? It's the same thing I was talking about yesterday with Florida State. Like, just judge. I want to judge this season almost solely because of where it was last year on how they do in the regular season. Just enjoy the regular season, this Florida State baseball team, because it is such a crapshoot. And Atlanta, the Braves had such a great lineup last year and had such a great season. Then they bow out to the Phillies again. And it's like, does that mean the whole season was meaningless? Those 162 games didn't matter because they played like crap for 4? So yeah, that's just why baseball is so goofy, man. It's just so goofy. But yeah, if they hit like they should hit, they could and should make the World Series because they have pitching too. And that's been Braves talk here on Wake Up Warchant. You're welcome, everyone. We'll do the Falcons tomorrow.
I just wanted to talk about the Dodgers for a quick. I mean, like Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and then Freddie Freeman. Is that like 3, 4, 5, or 7?
Yeah, it's. I think it's their 1, 2, 3. I think that's how they because Betts leads off. Yeah, I mean that's you've got 3 MVPs right in a row. Like literally, they've won MVPs, all 3 of them, and 3 Hall of Famers. The Braves have they have Acuna, Albies, and Olsen and Riley. They have a bunch of All-Stars, and Acuna's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But those guys are legitimate first ballot Hall of Famers, all 3 of them. So, yeah, they're really good, man.
What's the equivalent of letting Mookie Betts go for like nothing? Would it have been NIL era, 2014 Jameis, and being like, nah, good luck elsewhere. Appreciate you.
It's also weird, too, because he was really good with the Red Sox. It's not like they didn't know he was awesome. He was an MVP, I think, with them. And I don't know why they didn't. I mean, they have a lot of money. Like, the Red Sox have more money than most teams. I don't know why they wouldn't have ever kept him. But, yeah, it was really dumb. Like, the Braves kind of did it with Freeman, but they backed that up by immediately losing Freeman and then trading for Matt Olson. So I think Freeman's better than Olson, but it's by a hair. They're both all-star caliber first basemen. The Red Sox replaced Mookie Betts with nobody. I mean, they lost an all-time, like a generational talent for nothing. Which, again, I hate Red Sox fans. I hate the city of Boston sports fandom, just the sports fandom. I appreciate the history, the American history, and what happened in Boston. But their sports fandom and their sports fans, I'm just over it. Yeah. So I'm glad that he left, but it is – I mean, I wish he had stayed in the American League so the Braves don't have to see him because he's awesome. But he wasn't good enough to win MVP last year, buddy. That was Ronald Acuna.
Like Charlie wasn't, like Charlie had another year after 93. You're like, nah, we're gonna roll with
Cannell.
Well, I don't want to besmirch Danny. Danny was good. Danny was really. I mean,
this was a funny moment. Yesterday we were watching the NC State basketball game, and they kept showing Cannell. Because if people don't know, Danny Cannell's nephew is the Middlebrooks kid, the really annoying kid at NC State.
Why is he annoying? Because he plays hard?
Well, he's a pest. He's one of those pest guys, man. He's a big, burly dude that tries to get under your skin and irritate you and is physical with you. That's his role. And he's good at it. Certainly has been the last 9 games. But Brady was half listening. And I'm like, oh, yeah, the guy that played quarterback at Florida State, that's his nephew. And so anyway, 5 minutes later, they show Danny Cannell in the stands wearing a shirt. And Brady goes, oh, is that his dad? And the shirt literally says, that he's wearing, says Ben Middlebrooks' uncle. And Brady asked me if that's his dad.
How angry were you?
It's what I'm dealing with over here. It's just what I'm dealing over here in life. So, good times.
Seminole headlines, 1 to 3 o'clock, live on YouTube, 93.3 FM in Tallahassee, and wherever else you can pick up that signal.
Well, it won't be live on YouTube, but it will be on YouTube from 1 to 3. We're just having to record it earlier for some, just to get some kinks out, make sure it gets up on time. But it won't be live, but it will be on starting at 1 o'clock.
So you guys have almost guaranteed that some sort of big news is going to break tomorrow afternoon then?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. So get ready, folks. Pay attention to be on warchant.com nonstop starting at about 1:10.
Yeah. No promo code. Just head over to warchant.com. It's $1 for a month. Try it out. Try us out. We got, 19 days, 18 days as you're listening to this, folks, until the spring game. So I'll give you a good sample size of how we cover football. And this is spring. Just imagine what we do when the fall comes around. And then everything else under the sun, recruiting, baseball, softball, basketball portal open. hopefully some guys start coming our way. Saw the guys from FAU. Some of those guys, the big dude, Vlad. Let's get on that.
Yeah,
Leonard.
I'm with you.
It's right up your alley. Right up your alley. He's Corey. I'm Azon. Thank you so much for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.